Hey, boys and girls. Hopefully, you're having a great day. Hopefully, you're able to get outside a little bit and enjoy that weather. Boy, I had a great day. I was outside almost all day long. I had my fancy dancy sunglasses on. Whew, it was an awesome day. So, hopefully, you guys are ready because we are going to read our next chapter in the Magic Treehouse. So, we got a couple jobs that I want you to think about. When we're done with the reading today, I want you to talk with your mom and dad or someone at your house. Talk with them about a couple things. I want you to think about the two characters that we met, Jack and Annie. I want you to talk with them about maybe something that you learned about them in this next chapter that we read. So something that you learned about them. But also, I want you to think about the setting. Where is our story taking place? Now there's going to be a new place, a new setting in this next chapter. So I want you to think and listen to where that new setting is. And then you're going to get a chance. In our packet, there is a journal page for you guys. I want you to illustrate the setting, and then also I want you guys to draw a picture of what you think our two main characters look like, Jack and Annie. I want you to draw a picture of Jack and Annie in the new setting that we read about in the chapter today. So, we're going to start off our new chapter. And before we do, I want you guys to go back and think about what happened and where they were at in our chapter that we read last night. Jack and Annie were going around and walking around into places to eat in that new town that they had just came to when they got from the Magic Treehouse. And then Annie was really excited and interested about finding more out about the pandas. So, we're going to read this next chapter, and I want you guys, to think about those two main characters, Jack and Annie, and the setting that we read about in our chapter today. So, chapter number 3. The Sleeping Dragon. Oh, brother, thought Jack, hurrying after Annie. By the time he entered the bike shop, she was already talking to the man who worked there. Good news, Annie said, rushing over to Jack. He says we can get to the Panda Center on mountain bikes, and it's only 30 yen a day per bike. Did he say how long it takes to get there? Asked Jack. Not too long, said Annie. She clapped her hands. Her eyes were shining bright. Jack, I can't believe this. Annie was so excited about the Panda Center that Jack couldn't say no. So he reached into his pocket and took out 3 20-yen notes and gave them to the shopkeeper. The man handed Jack and Annie their helmets. It's a beautiful ride up the mountain, but be very careful, he said as Annie put her helmet on. Thanks, see you later, said Annie. She grabbed a blue mountain bike and steered it out of the store. Be very careful, the man called after her. Very careful of what? Wondered Jack. But tucking his helmet under his arm, he grabbed a red bike and followed Annie out the door. So the bike guy told me to go up the street and turn left onto the highway, Annie said. Then we just stay on it until we come to the Panda Center. Cool. How far away is that? Asked Jack as he put on his helmet. He snapped the strap under his chin. Not very far, just 5 or 6 miles, said Annie. What? Said Jack. Don't worry, we can do it easy. Annie pushed off and pedaled away. To Panda Paradise, she shouted, zooming down the street. 5 or 6 miles, muttered Jack. Up a mountain? Great. He got on his bike and followed Annie. She reached the end of the street and turned left onto the highway. Jack hurried to catch up. As he pedaled on the highway, he glanced at the scenery. On one side of the road was a steep mountain slope, as it was covered with fir trees and bushes with purple and pink flowers. On the other side of the road was a steep drop down to a river. The river sparkled with sunlight as it rushed through green farmland. More clouds covered mountains that were looming in the distance. There's a picture of Jack and Annie riding their bikes. A blue bus suddenly roared past. Jack almost lost his balance. "Good grief," he said. "That was close." Then a car that looked like a taxi flew by. This was definitely not safe, Jack said aloud. How could he have let Annie talk him into riding bikes on a highway? They should have taken a bus or maybe a taxi, or better yet, not have gone at all. "Annie!" Jack shouted. She was so far ahead that he could barely see her. "Annie!" yelled Jack, again as loud as he could. "Slow down, Annie! Slow down!" Annie rounded a sharp curve and disappeared from sight. Jack stood on his pedals and pumped with all his might. He imagined Annie veering into the path of a vehicle or driving straight off the cliff. When Jack finally came around the curve, he saw Annie up ahead, waiting beside the road. A big grin lit up her face. "Thank goodness you're okay," she called. "I was worried about you." Jack rode to her and stopped his bike. "This road is not safe, you know," said Annie. "You're telling me," said Jack, panting. "But I can understand how that dragon felt, can't you?" said Annie. "It is so beautiful here." Jack caught his breath and looked around. "Yeah, it is," he said. "But how much farther do we have to go? We can't forget about our mission." "I don't think it's much farther. Come on, we'll hurry," said Annie. She climbed back onto her bike. "I'll go first," said Jack. "Let's stay together and keep as close as we can to the side of the road. I'm serious, Annie." He gripped his handlebars and started pedaling away. Leading the way, Jack hugged the side of the road. He glanced back a couple of times to make sure Annie was doing the same. As they struggled uphill, huffing and puffing, a light rain started to fall down. Mist gradually descended over the valley and the highway as they biked higher and higher up the mountain. More vehicles roared by, but Jack tried to ignore them. He couldn't believe they were hiking up a mountain on a Chinese highway in foggy weather. Finally, Jack and Annie came to a sign that said, "Conservation and Research Center for the Giant Panda." Oh, looks like they're there. "Yay, we're here," said Annie. The rain had stopped. Jack was wet, exhausted, and out of breath. "I hope you're happy," he said. Annie gave Jack a big smile. "I am," she said. "Totally happy." The Panda Center was nestled between two tall mountains. It was on the far side of a narrow river. A small bridge crossed the river to the entrance gate. Near the gate, a group of grown-ups were waiting to go inside. Jack and Annie rode to the parking lot and parked their bikes next to a small blue bus. They took off their helmets and hung them on the handlebars. "Oh no!" cried Annie. She pointed to the Panda Center sign. At the bottom it said, "No one under 18 years old can come without an adult." "I don't believe it," said Jack. "We came all this way for nothing." He had to admit he was secretly relieved. Now they could get back to their mission. "I can't accept this," said Annie. "We have to get in there." "Your attention, please, everyone," a woman in a uniform called the group waiting outside to come to the front gate. "Let's go listen," said Annie. She ran across the bridge. "Annie!" Jack called. He sighed and then hurried after her. They stood at the back of the little crowd. "My name is Dr. Ling," the young Chinese woman said to the group. "Welcome to the largest giant panda reserve in the entire world. This is a place for scientists and animals to live together." "That's me," said Annie, "an animal protector scientist person." Several people looked at Annie as if they were wondering who she was. "Oh, brother," thought Jack. "Good. Dr. Ling said to Annie, pandas are one of the most endangered species in the world. For at least 3 million years, they have lived in China's dense bamboo forests. Now, those forests are being cut down to make room for farms and roads. How many pandas are left? Asked Annie. Throughout the world, only about 1,600 in the world, said Dr. Ling. Today, the species is threatened with extinction. That's terrible, said Annie. Shh, said Jack. But Annie didn't shh. Can we save them, Dr. Ling? She asked. We hope so. We're working hard to do just that at the Panda Center, said Dr. Ling. We are responsible for about 200 pandas here. Many were rescued after an injury or an illness, and many more were born here. Last year, we had 6 new baby pandas. Wow, said Annie. While the Panda Center is not a place for tourists, said Dr. Ling, we do allow volunteers to come in and help us. So without further ado, let's get all suited up. Annie started walking with the crowd. Annie, come back, Jack whispered. Come back! But Annie just signaled for Jack to follow her. Then she stepped boldly into the Conservation and Research Center for the giant panda. And that's the end of our chapter. Ooh, this next chapter looks good. So boys and girls, here's your job. I want you to talk with your moms or dads or someone at your house about Jack and Annie. And think about what we talked about and what you heard. And if there was something new that you learned about Jack and Annie. And then I want you to think about the setting. The setting is a little bit different than what we talked about in our last chapter. So in your journal, I want you to open your journals up, find your page number 3 for your writing. I want you to illustrate the setting that we just talked about in our chapter, and then illustrate and draw a picture of Annie and a picture of Jack and what you guys think they look like. It can be your writing because you're the illustrator. So have fun, take your time, and do your very best. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night. Miss you guys.